Persuasion. When we think about persuasion, most of us probably begin to think about political campaign ads or hotly contested legislative debates or even solicitors on our campus. As such, we might feel that if we're not looking to be a politician or an elected official or dedicate our lives to a worthy nonprofit in our community, we might not need to develop skills for persuasion. However, persuasion is a very important skill to everyone. Think about how you use your influence every day, like trying to convince your roommate that they should clean up their messes more often, or even trying to sway your partner to watch a movie that they're skeptical about. And now think how you use your influence to convince others on bigger issues, like the best solutions to hotly contested debates, like gun rights, or should public schools mandate teaching abstinence only or comprehensive sexual education. As persuasive speaking applies to this class, you'll be learning how to use persuasion to attempt to convince an audience about a specific policy solution. As you'll learn, these policy solutions can relate to national, state, or local entities, or even smaller ones like a single university, or a local nonprofit or business, or a parent-teacher organization, or even a student group on campus. As a people, we're often in the best positions to identify problems that exist in our society and debate amongst ourselves how we should collectively address these problems. Persuasive policy speaking is an excellent example of citizenship in action. Policy speeches ask us to be informed and involved in our community, to witness the suffering and challenges of others in our world, and to advance a particular solution that we think will work the best. However, policy speeches are among the most difficult speeches. Unlike informative speaking, we need to do more than just deliver good facts and data. We need to advocate for a particular solution. And unlike a public deliberation speech, we'll be harnessing our strong feelings about an issue to motivate others to feel similarly. As such, policy speeches represent a new order of complexity for novice public speakers. In this video, I'll share a little bit more about obstacles to persuading others, and then I'll summarize some successful strategies that you can lean into as you head into your policy speech. Here are some specific reasons why persuading another is difficult. Research in the fields of communication studies, political science, and psychology have shown that speaking with someone about policy issues can be particularly challenging, and there's reason to believe that it's only getting more so. In general, most of us don't like to be proven wrong, and we're not all that open to hearing other people's perspectives on issues. What's more, we oftentimes can't even find a place to begin the conversation because we can't agree on what are good and fair facts and evidence to frame the problem to begin with. I'll name some even more specifics now. Research shows that when people have strong beliefs or views about a particular issue, they are unlikely to interpret new information fairly. This psychological process is called confirmation bias. In other words, when folks come across evidence that confirms their existing views, they believe that that information is quite true. But when they encounter evidence that challenges their view, they're highly critical of that information. Another obstacle is partisanship. Many people's opinions on policy are increasingly led by partisanship. This can be understood as the knee-jerk belief that the best policy is whatever policy that is being advocated by someone who shares my political affiliation. Which also means that if a policy is being advocated by a person of another political affiliation, that policy must not be good, valid, moral, or right. You can see strong partisan division in divisive issues in U.S. American politics, such as immigration, foreign affairs, the U.S. military budget, welfare, and education policies. Another hurdle can be policy as identity. Increasingly, people view particular policies as a core part of their identity. Does that resonate with you? Are there solutions to tough issues that you feel are a core part of who you are? The term identity protective cognition shows that people process information about the world so it confirms their own ideas about who they are. A great example of this are policies that relate to racial bias. If a speaker is challenging a policy because it's racially biased, an audience member might be resistant because they don't want to think of themselves, having previously supported the policy, as a racist. Another element that makes it difficult to change someone's mind on a policy is the tension between tolerance and security. Also related to an issue of identity, research over the last decade demonstrates that while people are generally open-minded about other people and cultures and beliefs, they become less open-minded when they feel their own way of life is being threatened by change. As one example, think of this in terms of a common reaction that a parent might have to a rebellious teenager. When they first start to act out, the parent might be fairly tolerant and react in a variety of different ways, dismissing the actions of their teen as non-offensive. However, if those actions then begin to accumulate and come to a head, the parent might begin to tighten up the reins. A final obstacle is called the backfire effect. Recent research in political science and psychology has found that sometimes correcting a person's misperception about a policy actually leads them to dig in their heels more and believe that misperception more deeply. In other words, when someone's asked to defend a specific belief, when that belief is currently being challenged, the investment that they have in that belief grows. This all might seem that persuading someone of a policy might be impossible, but it is not. There are lots of strategies outlined in your textbook that are useful and successful. So after reviewing some specific reasons why persuading someone of a policy is difficult, let's briefly consider how we might reframe the effect of our persuasiveness through a policy speech. Imagine a continuum that represents your ability to persuade or change audience members' minds just by delivering your policy speech. As many of us do, you might head into your policy speech with high expectations of how you're going to change your audience members' minds just through this speech. However, as we've learned, persuasive speaking is difficult. Rather than lose confidence over the potential failure of swaying all the masses, it might be best if we conceptualize movement on this continuum as incremental instead. It's unlikely that our speech will move anyone from one end of the continuum to the other, but perhaps we might move or motivate someone incrementally on that continuum, and we can count that as a persuasive win. Now I'd like to offer some strategies that have proven effective for persuading people about policy issues. First, know that persuasion is much more effective when speakers deliver information in an engaging way. And this can involve your verbal delivery or your nonverbal delivery or the clothing that you choose to wear for your performance or your logical organization of your speech, or the visual aids that you use, or many other aspects. Dedicating time to preparing and practicing your speech can give you a huge boost of persuasiveness. Next, the more you can make your topic of concern relatable and relevant to your audience, the more they're likely to be persuaded by it. So take time to connect your topic and your audience all throughout your speech, not just in the introduction. Also, social science research suggests that speakers can persuade audiences to reconsider their views on policy issues when they're asked to see the world from a different perspective, meaning that people find it hard to continue to support a policy once they now know that that policy is unfair. This is something that many college students experience. Before college, many students are generally underexposed to diverse populations of people. But upon entering the university, they come to know people from many different backgrounds, ethnicities, socioeconomic classes, and many other demographics. Meeting and getting to know these diverse people often increases one's empathy, and thus makes them more open to reconsidering views on a policy. Finally, understanding and preparing for counter-arguments can greatly enhance your persuasiveness. If an audience can see that you've done your research on your issue and have considered the benefits and disadvantages to many of the proposed solutions to this big issue, they're much more likely to be persuaded by the one that you are advocating for. As we've seen, persuading people is hard, and research suggests that in relation to politics and policies, it's only getting more difficult. But you have tools to use. It's important to know that not all of these strategies will work for all audiences, but try out what you feel fits your audience best. Remember to keep that continuum in mind so that as you head into your policy speech, you have realistic goals about your impact. And above all, remember that policy speaking is an excellent example of citizenship in action, even if we're not successful in persuading everyone. By taking up this challenge, you're putting effort into being an active member of a public in search of its best self.